Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein.
Two brothers from Buffalo built the most feared name in Hollywood.
Harvey Weinstein was known to be a bully.
He thought of himself as the sheriff in town.
He could do anything.
I just froze.
I said no and I pushed them away.
They turned indie films into Oscar gold, made Pulp Fiction a cultural phenomenon, and had Disney writing them blank checks for over a decade.
Would do well, and then he'd crash, and crash.
But here's what nobody talks about. Their empire didn't crumble because of bad movies or box office bombs. But get this, it collapsed because of something far more sinister. Something that was hiding in plain sight for decades, whispered about in Hollywood circles but never spoken aloud.
Described as an open secret for years in Hollywood, but they never broke, and there are a lot of reasons for that.
And when it finally came to light in 2017, it didn't just destroy Harvey Weinstein. It turned one of cinema's greatest success stories into Hollywood's most toxic brand overnight.
Yesterday you touched my breast.
Oh, please, I'm sorry. Just come on, I'm used to that.
Erasing 20 years of cultural impact in a matter of weeks. This is the rise and fall of Miramax. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why this story is actually a perfect blueprint for how power, unchecked ambition, and dark secrets can destroy even the most successful empire in entertainment history. The scrappy beginning, two nobodies with a dream. Let me paint you a picture of where this all started, because it's important you understand just how impossible their success actually was. 1979, Buffalo, New York. Harvey and Bob Weinstein are sitting in a cramped office above a pizza shop. Harvey's 27, Bob's 24. They've got no connections, no money, and definitely no respect from anyone in Hollywood. But they've got something else. They're absolutely obsessed with movies that nobody else wants to touch. While major studios are chasing the next Star Wars or Superman, throwing millions at blockbuster spectacles, the Weinsteins are doing something completely different. They're buying weird foreign films, controversial documentaries, and indie projects that Hollywood executives won't even return calls about. Think about how crazy this sounds. Two guys from Buffalo think they can compete with Warner Brothers, Paramount, and Universal by selling art house films to American audiences. Their company name? Miramax, a combination of their parents' names, Miriam and Max. Not exactly the most intimidating brand in entertainment, right? But here's where it gets interesting. Their first real breakthrough came in 1982 with The Secret Policeman's Other Ball, an Amnesty International concert film. Not exactly blockbuster material, but it became a surprise hit in the US. Then, in 1988, they distributed Errol Morris's documentary, The Thin Blue Line. This wasn't just a film, it was a documentary that actually helped free a man from death row. Suddenly, Miramax wasn't just about entertainment. They were about films that mattered, films that changed lives. But the real game changer was still coming. The breakthrough that changed everything. 1989, a 26-year-old named Steven Soderbergh walks into their Buffalo office with a little film called Sex, Lies, and Videotape. Now, every major studio in Hollywood had already passed on this movie. It was too small, too weird, too indie for their taste. But Harvey Weinstein watched it and saw something nobody else did. He saw the future of cinema. Here's what made this moment so crucial. Sex, Lies, and Videotape wasn't just a movie, it was proof of concept. It showed that audiences were hungry for authentic, character-driven stories that the major studios were ignoring. The film grossed an adjusted $55 million, a record for an independent distributor at the time. But more importantly, it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes and launched the independent film revolution of the 1990s. Suddenly, everyone in Hollywood knew the name Miramax. But Harvey and Bob weren't satisfied with just being successful indie distributors. They wanted to be players, they wanted to compete with the big boys, and that ambition would lead them to make the deal that would define their entire career. The Disney deal, selling their soul for success. By 1993, the Weinsteins had a problem that every successful entrepreneur faces. They were successful, but they were still small. They had the vision and the taste, but they didn't have the resources to compete with studios that had $100 million marketing budgets. Enter Disney. Yes, Mickey Mouse's parent company wanted to buy the scrappy indie studio from Buffalo. Here's why this deal was so brilliant and so dangerous. Disney paid $60 million for Miramax and assumed another $40 million in debt. But the genius part? Harvey and Bob negotiated to stay in complete creative control. They now had Disney's massive checkbook behind them, but they kept their indie credibility and decision-making power. It was like being given a Ferrari but getting to keep your street racing crew. What happened next changed Hollywood forever. Pulp Fiction, the cultural earthquake. 1994. Quentin Tarantino, a 31-year-old video store clerk turned filmmaker, brings Harvey Weinstein a script called Pulp Fiction. Now, this wasn't just another indie film, this was a non-linear crime epic with graphic violence, extensive profanity, and a structure that completely broke conventional storytelling rules. Most studios would have run screaming. Harvey Weinstein saw it as the perfect Miramax film. Edgy, intelligent, and completely different from anything else in theaters. Pulp Fiction didn't just succeed, it exploded. $108 million domestic box office, which was massive for an independent film. But the real impact was cultural. This movie made John Travolta cool again, launched Samuel L. Jackson into superstardom, and gave us lines like "Royale with cheese" and "I'm gonna get medieval on your ass." More importantly, Pulp Fiction proved that audiences were starving for original, adult-oriented content. It showed that you didn't need explosions and special effects to create a phenomenon. You just needed great characters, sharp dialogue, and a unique vision. But Pulp Fiction was just the beginning. Harvey and Bob had cracked the code on something nobody else understood: how to turn art house sensibilities into mainstream gold while completely dominating awards season. The Oscar factory weaponizing awards season. Throughout the mid to late 90s, Miramax became synonymous with prestige cinema: The Piano, Clark's, Priest, Kids, Trainspotting, Sling Blade. They weren't just releasing movies, they were curating culture. But here's what made them truly dangerous: their Oscar campaigns. Before Miramax, awards season was relatively genteel. Studios would submit their films, maybe take out some trade ads, and hope for the best. Harvey Weinstein turned it into a blood sport. He pioneered the aggressive "For Your Consideration" campaign, spending unprecedented amounts of money on screenings, parties, and lobbying. He would personally call Academy voters, send them gifts, and make sure they understood exactly why his films deserved to win. The results were staggering. By 1993, Miramax had more Oscar nominations than almost any company except Warner Brothers. They were the little indie studio that was embarrassing the major studios at their own game. My Left Foot gave them their first major Oscar wins with Daniel Day-Lewis and Brenda Fricker. The English Patient won Best Picture. Shakespeare in Love beat Saving Private Ryan for Best Picture in one of the most controversial Oscar upsets in history. Think about that for a second. A company that started above a pizza shop in Buffalo was now regularly beating Steven Spielberg and other Hollywood legends at the Academy Awards. But success bred ambition, and ambition bred problems that would eventually destroy everything they'd built. The controversies that built the brand. Here's something fascinating about Miramax's rise. Controversy wasn't a bug, it was a feature. Priest sparked massive protests from Catholic groups. Kids was so controversial that it received an NC-17 rating and ignited debates about youth culture and morality. These weren't accidents. Harvey Weinstein understood that controversy generated publicity, and publicity sold tickets. The MPAA ratings battles became part of the Miramax brand. Harvey would fight tooth and nail against ratings that he felt would hurt his film's commercial prospects, often winning through sheer persistence and media manipulation. But the most telling controversy came with The Lord of the Rings. Yes, Peter Jackson's epic trilogy was originally developed at Miramax. Harvey saw the potential in Tolkien's work and put the project into development. But when Disney executives saw the scope and budget requirements, they demanded that Jackson condense the entire trilogy into a single film. Jackson refused, and Harvey was forced to sell the rights to New Line Cinema for around $12 million, keeping only a small gross participation. New Line then made cinematic history with the trilogy, earning nearly $3 billion worldwide and winning multiple Oscars. It became the one that got away for Miramax, a perfect symbol of how corporate interference was starting to limit their creative ambitions. The peak: mini-major status and maximum tension. The early 2000s marked Miramax's absolute peak and the beginning of their inevitable downfall. They were no longer just buying and distributing indie films. They were mounting massive, expensive productions that rivaled anything the major studios were producing. Gangs of New York cost over $100 million. Cold Mountain was another massive period epic. These weren't scrappy indie projects. These were mini-studio blockbusters with prestige pedigrees. Chicago became their highest-grossing film ever and won Best Picture in 2003. On paper, everything looked perfect. Miramax was now a legitimate powerhouse that could compete with anyone in Hollywood. But behind the scenes, the relationship with Disney was deteriorating rapidly. Disney executives were getting increasingly uncomfortable with Miramax's content. The violence, the sexuality, the political themes, it all clashed with Disney's family-friendly brand image. More importantly, the budgets were exploding beyond what Disney had originally agreed to support. Harvey Weinstein's behavior was also becoming more problematic. His legendary temper tantrums, his treatment of employees, and his increasingly erratic decision-making were creating a toxic work environment that Disney executives couldn't ignore. The breaking point came with Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11. The beginning of the end. Fahrenheit 9/11 and the Disney divorce. 2004. Michael Moore brings Harvey Weinstein a documentary that's guaranteed to be controversial. Fahrenheit 9/11, a scathing critique of President George W. Bush and the Iraq War. Harvey loves it. Disney executives hate it. They refuse to distribute it in the US, citing concerns about political backlash and potential impacts on Disney's other business interests. What followed was a very public, very ugly feud between Harvey Weinstein and Disney. Harvey accused Disney of censorship and political cowardice. Disney accused Harvey of exceeding his authority and damaging the company's reputation. The film eventually found distribution through other channels and became the highest-grossing documentary of all time. But the damage to the Disney-Miramax relationship was irreparable. By 2005, both sides had had enough. Disney and the Weinsteins announced they wouldn't renew their deal when it expired. It was like watching a messy divorce between two parties who had once been madly in love. The split, keeping the name, losing the magic. Here's where the story gets really interesting from a business perspective. Disney kept the Miramax name and the entire film library. All those classics, all that Oscar gold, everything that had made the brand valuable. The Weinsteins walked away with essentially nothing except their reputations and the Dimension Films horror label. Think about what that meant. Pulp Fiction, Shakespeare in Love, Chicago, The English Patient, all of those films now belong to Disney, not to the men who had discovered and championed them. The Weinsteins launched the Weinstein Company in 2005, essentially starting over from scratch. Meanwhile, Disney tried to continue Miramax without its founders. Post-Weinstein, Miramax had some notable successes. The Queen earned Helen Mirren an Oscar. No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood both won multiple Academy Awards. But something fundamental was missing. The magic was gone. The instinct for discovering and nurturing unique voices had walked out the door with Harvey and Bob. Miramax was now just another Disney subsidiary, lacking the passion and vision that had made it special. By 2010, Disney had effectively given up on Miramax as an active production company. The New York and Los Angeles offices were shut down, and operations were merged into Walt Disney Studios. The company that had revolutionized independent film was now just a logo and a library. The wilderness years, from studio to streaming asset. For the next 7 years, Miramax existed in a strange limbo. Disney sold the company to various investment groups, including Qatar's beIN Media Group. The focus shifted entirely to licensing the classic film library to digital platforms like Netflix, Amazon, and Hulu. Occasionally, the Miramax name would appear on co-financing deals or small productions, but it was essentially a ghost brand, a shadow of its former self, trading on past glories. In 2013, there was even a brief, ironic reunion when Miramax and the Weinstein Company signed a 20-year joint venture to develop sequels and series based on classic Miramax titles. Rounders 2, Shakespeare in Love follow-ups, Good Will Hunting TV adaptations. It seemed like the band might be getting back together. But that deal was short-lived and ultimately went nowhere. The Weinstein Company was struggling financially, and Harvey's behavior was becoming increasingly erratic and problematic. Nobody knew it at the time, but a reckoning was coming that would destroy not just the Weinstein Company, but retroactively taint everything Harvey had ever touched, including the Miramax legacy. October 2017, the scandal that destroyed everything. October 5th, 2017. The New York Times publishes an investigation by Jodi Kantor and Megan Twohey detailing decades of sexual harassment allegations against Harvey Weinstein. 3 days later, The New Yorker publishes Ronan Farrow's even more damning investigation, including allegations of rape and sexual assault. Within weeks, dozens of women came forward with their own stories spanning decades. Actresses, assistants, journalists, executives, the allegations painted a picture of systematic abuse and exploitation that had been an open secret in Hollywood for years. The Weinstein Company collapsed almost immediately. Harvey was fired from his own company, expelled from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and eventually sentenced to 23 years in prison. But here's the truly devastating part for the Miramax legacy. Suddenly, every success story was recontextualized. Every Oscar win, every breakthrough film, every romantic indie success story was now viewed through the lens of abuse and exploitation. Had Shakespeare in Love really deserved to beat Saving Private Ryan for Best Picture, or was it the result of Harvey's aggressive campaigning and behind-the-scenes manipulation? How many careers had been launched through Miramax, and how many had been destroyed by Harvey's behavior? The company that had given us Pulp Fiction, Good Will Hunting, and Chicago was now permanently associated with one of Hollywood's biggest monsters. The toxic legacy when success becomes poison. Today, Miramax technically still exists. It's owned by various investment groups and occasionally surfaces in co-financing deals or streaming partnerships. But it's essentially a zombie brand, a library of great films haunted by the actions of its co-founder. The tragedy is that Miramax genuinely changed cinema for the better. They proved that independent films could be both artistic and commercial. They launched countless careers, won dozens of Oscars, and created some of the most beloved and influential films of the 1990s and 2000s. They showed that audiences were hungry for original, adult-oriented content that treated them with intelligence and respect. They proved that you didn't need explosions and special effects to create cultural phenomena. You just needed great stories and unique voices. But none of that matters now. Because when your co-founder becomes synonymous with abuse and exploitation, even the greatest artistic achievements get overshadowed by the darkness behind them. Think about that trajectory. From two hungry brothers in Buffalo with a dream to the most feared and respected name in Hollywood, to a cautionary tale about unchecked power and the price of success. It's a perfect example of how quickly a legacy can be destroyed, how the actions of one person can taint decades of achievement, and how power without accountability inevitably leads to corruption and downfall. The rise and fall of Miramax isn't just a business story, it's a perfect case study in how ambition, power, and dark secrets can destroy even the most successful empire in entertainment history. 2 decades of groundbreaking films, Oscar victories, and cultural impact, all tainted by the actions of one man. It's a reminder that in Hollywood, as in life, how your story ends often determines how it's remembered. The Weinstein brothers built something truly special, a company that changed how we think about independent cinema and proved that audiences were hungry for intelligent, original content. But Harvey's inability to control his worst impulses didn't just destroy his own life and career, it poisoned everything he had ever touched. But wait, there's one more Hollywood empire that fell even harder and faster than Miramax, and the reason it collapsed will absolutely shock you. This studio went from billion-dollar blockbusters to complete bankruptcy in record time, and the behind-the-scenes drama makes the Miramax story look tame by comparison. If you want to know which major studios executives were literally arrested by the FBI, click here and watch this video next. We are committed to releasing 2 videos a week. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more film lore.